to bring in Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs, member of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees. Thank you for your patience. We wanted to get you in and talk about a whole host of topics, but I have to start with what we just saw and the President of the United States and get your top line reactions.
Well, I felt he was very disconnected and disingenuous. I mean, I know what's going on in my district. I know that people in Arizona, Harris, $5.63 a gallon is the average price in Arizona. In the Phoenix metro area, it's a little higher. And quite frankly, everything is more expensive. I talked to a guy yesterday who has 800 employees, but he can't keep the jobs filled because people are choosing to stay home and instead of coming to work. This economy is distortive right now, and this president doesn't appreciate the difficulties people have just putting food on their table because of the inflationary pressures. And I'll tell you, Phoenix Metro is either the second or third highest inflation rate in the country, true inflation rate in the country. And although our economy is good there, it's tough. It's really tough.
And I've been watching that actually, just with your price of housing. I mean, it is incredible the fast rate of the inflation that we were told by this administration would be transitory. I do want to get to this. You and I often will talk about coming up with a plan and how you know when somebody doesn't have a plan, they blame the other guy. Here's President Biden moments ago. Now remember, our economy is limping, we're in trouble, and this is what he says.
We've come a long way in a short time. Do you remember when our economy was like what it looked like before we took office? 3,000 Americans are dying every day from COVID. 20 million Americans had lost their jobs on the last guy. In fact, so many Americans lost their jobs that my predecessor became just the second president in history to leave office with fewer jobs in America than when he took office.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, I also remember that the economy was recovering under President Trump before the change in tenure there. But I also will tell you that before the COVID epidemic hit, you had more people working than at any time in the history of this country. You had low inflation, you had real wage growth, you had more people of every demographic working. And now we have people that have decided not to go back to work because they're getting, they either got stimulus package, they got continued drawing unemployment. Yeah, and so you've got people who are not coming back, and you have job vacancies, 11 million plus openings right now.
So I do want to say this because I think it's really important. Gas was what, about $1.99?
Yeah.
Before he took office? Right. Like, let's just cut this real. I don't know who he thinks he's talking to outside that room. Like, I realize that is the band's fan room. I get that. When you play the band, those are the fans inside there with 12 million people represented, not all in that room, but by the AFL-CIO. I totally get that. But the reality is he's not doing anything to help turn this around. He said he wasn't even really going to deal with the Fed, and then he had him to the White House. I just want to get your last thoughts on where we go from here and what you're telling your constituents.
Well, what I tell my constituents is that we could lower almost immediately, within a month or so, by 40% of cost if we would simply open up American energy markets again, exploration, development, extraction, and refinery. But this administration continues to fight that. So that's one thing we could do. The second thing we could do is Congress has to get its spending under control because that's devalued the currency. Those two things in and of themselves would actually put pressure to reduce cost of energy, which would reduce overall cost in the marketplace. People understand that. It's because it's not rocket science. It's just pure economics, and we all understand that.
Team, I know it's quick. Can we see Biden talking about how, calling all the rest of us liars, that he's not really spending the way he is?
I don't want to hear any more of these lies about reckless spending. We're changing people's lives. And because of the fact this year, we're delivering the biggest drop in deficit in the history of the United States of America.
So the fact check there that Jackie DeAngelis did from Fox Business, Congressman, was that He would have to deliver a drop by the deficit of 3 to 4 times what it's fallen. That it's a complete, as you said, distortion of what we need to hear. We'll hit that quick from you and move on.
Yeah, absolutely it is, and he needs to stop spending, and he needs, his advisors were telling him, Larry Summers, Democrat advisor, was saying, if you go with the American Rescue Act or whatever he called it, you're going to increase inflationary pressure. He didn't care, just like he didn't care about gas prices going up either.
All right, let's get to the January 6th hearing now. The second public hearing was yesterday. And inside the Republican Party, there was an opportunity that never came. And that was an invitation by the House Speaker to have 230 years, I understand, of tradition and how to do this. To have members of the opposite party choose who they would want as part of that committee. So it would flow like a 9/11 commission. How do you think it's going so far?
Well, it's going almost exactly like I thought. There's nothing new. There's no emphasis on finding out what actually happened and letting people push back. I mean, and it's also devolved, quite frankly, into an attack on Donald Trump and his supporters. I mean, this notion that you're going to put something as irrelevant as Rudy Giuliani may or may not have been inebriated on election night, for Pete's sakes. I mean, what does that even have to do with anything? But that's where it's devolved to, and talking about polls being or elections being called too soon or not too soon in Arizona. Harrison, I simply don't understand where they're going and why they're doing this. I suspect I know why. It's to distract us, and it's a political affair, but that's my immediate reaction.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, let's get to this. And we haven't talked about the semantics of this war recently. The latest now in the war in Ukraine. More than 100 days in, Russia is making advances into that nation's eastern DONBAS region. Well, we knew that was coming. That's what they wanted to do. Well, they want the whole country, but they might settle for that. They have overwhelming advantage in firepower there. The war is all about the weapons. A Wall Street Journal headline reading, Ukraine fears defeat in the east without a surge in military aid. Ukraine's fate is in the hands of the United States and other allies as they prepare to discuss new heavy weapon supplies for the capital city, Kyiv, tomorrow. Look, I want to bottom line this with you. I'm talking to a lot of people, citizens. We're here in New York, but I'm traveling, giving commencement speeches all across the country. And what people are asking me is, Harris, why do people think that we're heartless? Why do they think we don't want to help Ukraine just because we want to put on our own oxygen mask first? Our economy is falling. How do we do both? How do we help the people of Ukraine and also help ourselves?
You know, there was an old economics saying you can't have guns and butter. And we've tried to have guns and butter for so long that we can't do it. I mean, we just gave Ukraine $40 billion. Think about that. We funded their government. We gave them stock from our stockpiles, not excess, not surplus, but actually from our stockpiles, almost a third of our strategic missile capability. And we just don't have the capacity to do it anymore, and the European and the NATO allies, they're not doing anything approaching what we've done. And you and I aren't even talking about the other issues besides our economy that materially impact what we can and can't do to help other nations. And so I am not getting anybody in my district significantly standing up saying we need to give them more money. What they're saying is we have huge problems in our country. Yes. I'm concerned about gas. I'm concerned about putting food on the table. I'm concerned about my job. I'm concerned about my family. That is important, and America first is kind of what I'm hearing right now.
Yeah, and you started right where Jackie DeAngelis left off in terms of her fact-checking with the president. People take great pride in this country having purpose. It's not that we don't want to work. But some of them have sat down because if the price of bread has doubled and your salary can't cover that, then maybe you sit home and you try to use less and you don't go to work. I mean, it is not where we thought we'd be. The words you just spoke, though, we're not giving Ukraine our surplus. We're giving them our stockpiles. Wow. Great to see you on a whole host of topics. I knew we'd get there. Thank you.
Thanks, Harris.